Even though there is overwhelming evidence to the contrary, including hours and hours of videos and photographic coverage, there is a continuous shocking attempt to ignore or try to destroy the truth of what truly happened that day. But on January 6th, for the first time, I was more afraid to work at the Capitol than my entire deployment to Iraq. What we were subjected that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch, to prevent an invasion of the Capitol by a violent mob intent on subverting our democratic process.
That was former Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gonell testifying to the January 6th committee about 6 months after the attack on the Capitol. And now, 4 years after this insurrection, he remains committed to speaking out. In a new, incredibly powerful piece for the New York Times, he writes, quote, "I remain haunted by that day. Now Mr. Trump's promised actions could erase the justice we've risked everything for." Joining us now is former Capitol Police Sergeant Aquilino Gonell, and Congressman Jamie Raskin is still with us. I opened the show by talking a bit about how today feels a bit like a moment for reflection and talking about what really happened that day and reminding people of the history. So as people are reflecting on that, as you're reflecting on it, what do you hope people remember and understand about that day?
I just hope that the American people remember that what had transpired on January 6th was not a simple day. It was not a day full of love, because if that was a day full of love, then they almost loved me to death. I was attacked in Maine inside the tunnel. I was attacked in Maine outside the tunnel when we were trying to hold the police line. And for me, 4 years later, walking up here, it reminds me of January 6th and the aftermath when we had the fences up coming here, a fortified Capitol where nowhere in our history had happened before. And it was challenging that day, and it's challenging today, and especially knowing that Donald Trump wants to pardon these violent criminals that assaulted us on January 6th.
In your op-ed, we were just talking about this. You talk about how the fear of some of these individuals being pardoned. We were just talking about this with the congressman. Trump could pardon some of the more violent insurrectionists who participated in the events that day. Yeah. Is that something you fear personally for?
I fear that is going to normalize that type of behavior, because what they try and say is it's okay to attack our political system. It's okay to try to overthrow our government after the will of the people has been manifested. And not so much about self-fear, because what they going to do to me or my family. We just did what we signed up for. I did my job. I fulfilled my oath. And if they have an issue with me doing my job, then they do not stand with the Constitution. They do not stand for democracy like they prophesize they do every single time they get it on TV.
I feel political violence has been normalized, not that it is in the process of being. I don't know if you both feel that way. Congressman, do you feel fearful? I don't know, for yourself, for your colleagues, with the potential for these insurrectionists to be pardoned
well,
and now free?
Well, to your first point, Jen, political violence has been normalized as a way of doing mega business. I mean, we talk about January 6th. We don't talk so much about June 1st, 2020, but that was the day when Donald Trump and Attorney General William Barr assembled a paramilitary police makeshift unit under the direct control of the president and attorney general, and then they unleashed violence on peaceful Black Lives Matter protesters in Lafayette Square, so Trump could make his trek over to the St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, where he, lifted somebody else's Bible over his head upside down and made whatever statements he wanted to make, violating the separation of church and state. But they showed they were willing to mobilize government violence against peaceful protesters. On January 6th, they showed they were willing to mobilize Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and right-wing white nationalist paramilitary violence against the government, whatever they needed to get in power and to assault their opponents. That is a rule or ruin philosophy. Either we're going to rule everybody and everything, or we're going to ruin and tear down the possibility of government taking place for others. So that is a dangerous philosophy, and we have to demand that the Republicans renounce that philosophy. They have got to embrace constitutional government, which means sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But it can't be heads we win, and when we win an election, you respect that, but tails you lose or tails we lose. That is, if they lose an election, then they're going to try to tear down the whole system of government. And that's where we are now. And that was explaining a lot of the frustration of Democrats today. Would they be actually accepting a peaceful transfer of power had they lost?
No, I think that's a very open, scary question. Let me ask you, one of the things that is, I would say, a positive about an anniversary like today, of which there are not many, is that we can highlight the bravery of people like yourself and others who were in the Capitol Police and some who are still today. There is part of the legislation that was passed is, both money for families who lost loved ones, and also for mental health services.
Yes.
Are you and others getting the support and funding that you need and I think you deserve?
Some of the programs we have received it, but one of the legislation that was passed in the aftermath of January 6th was the Department of Justice. They have a program called Public Safety Officer Benefit Program. That, to my knowledge, only the officers who die by suicide family have been awarded that benefit. However, that law was updated to include physical and mental health injury. To this day, the Department of Justice has not approved any single living officer's claim, which is, I think, is ridiculous because many of the officers who are working at the Capitol today are still traumatized. Many of the same ones that were attacked on January 6th are going to be protecting Donald Trump in a couple of weeks. The irony of that he had not even acknowledged or apologized to that says a lot. But the benefit itself, no single officer, living officer, had been awarded that. And that person running that program is a political appointee left over, which I think, obviously, he doesn't believe in January 6th, that nothing wrong happened on January 6th. And to me, it's an outrage that had not happened.
That's outrageous. I think everybody should dig into that more. We will certainly do our best to do that. Thank you both so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you did on January 6th. And before then as well, thank you, as always, for shedding light and helping us understand moments in history, Congressman.
Thank you for having me.
Jen.